Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So back at the beginning of the summer, which feels like ages ago now, I was speaking to a friend, and she had been reading through the story of David and Jonathan, and she commented that she'd never heard a sermon on these passages or on the theme of friendship. And she sat there for a while and she said, "Do you know, I think the person who'd be really great at giving a sermon on friendship would be your mum. So I'm sorry, you've got me, but I am slowly turning into my mum, so some wisdom will come through." As Donna said, I'm Hannah, and I can usually be found either at the 4:30 or causing chaos elsewhere in the church. And I do enjoy coming to the 10 every now and then. I did tell the 8 o'clock I probably won't see them again anytime soon. Anyway, I want to say up front that this is one of the friendliest places that I have ever been. Every time I walk in here, somebody greets me with a huge smile, asks me how I am, and sometimes I even get given a cup of tea before asking. Thanks, Margaret. This community here does friendship well, so well done and thank you. And I hope today that each of you feels like you have somebody that you can call a friend. That may be somebody that you've known for a long time or that you've recently met, somebody that you've met through work or a social activity, and maybe some of you have even met your friends here at All Saints. And there's so many different types of friends. People have different people for different reasons and seasons in their life, and every friendship will look different. For some people, it'll be really obvious why they're friends, and for others, it may seem like a more unlikely friendship. And I think that David and Jonathan are one of these very unlikely friendships. For context, Jonathan is the son of Saul, who was king at the time, which effectively means that Jonathan was a prince. However, due to Saul going against God, his reign would not pass down the generations, so Jonathan would not become king. And then on the other side, we've got David, who had been brought into Saul's life as a harp player in the hopes of soothing some of Saul's anger. David was a lowly shepherd boy with no claim to the throne. And Jonathan is the firstborn son of a king. David is the lastborn son of a farmer. Yet in our reading today, we see Jonathan, a prince, making a deep covenant friendship with David, a shepherd boy. The most unlikely of friendships, but one that I think can teach us a lot. But why is friendship so important? Well, to put it simply, God created us to be in relationship with one another. And true Anglican style, I've got 3 points for us today, although unlike Jenny last week, they don't all start with the same letter. I'll try harder. But I think that when we look at David and Jonathan, there are 3 key characteristics that we can learn about friendship: sacrifice, loyalty, and intimacy. So we'll start with sacrifice. 1 Samuel 18 verse 4 says, "Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt." And we see here Jonathan giving everything to David, sacrificing his possessions, having just committed to love him as himself. This is an outward display of an inward feeling. Jonathan loved David and wanted to show it. Now just remember here that Jonathan is a prince, so he's taking off a princely robe and giving it to David, a farmer's son and shepherd. It's a bit crazy. Yet Jonathan loves David, and he gives up his cloak for him. And when we're friends, it's easy to make sacrifices for each other. We make outward displays of affection, just like Jonathan. Back when I was at school, we'd often be given as gifts these necklaces, and it's actually 2 necklaces, and each have a pendant, and each pendant is half of a heart that comes together to make the whole heart. And the idea was you would keep one and you'd give one to your best friend as a sign of, that's my friend, this is a display of affection. And I got given one of these and had to choose who to give the other half to. It was so difficult. But when we have friends and when we love them, we want to show that. We want to make sacrifices and we want to give up something that we hold valuable for them. Jonathan takes off his robe and gives it to David. Now, I don't think any of us should start taking off our clothes and giving them to friends right now. In fact, it's cold enough we should stay fully dressed today. But more significantly, at this time, Jonathan gives David his sword. Now, the Philistines had prevented blacksmiths at this time from creating new weapons. So Jonathan is giving up his sword, knowing that it's not necessarily going to be replaced. Jonathan is sacrificing everything as an outward expression of his inward feelings towards David. He's giving up something valuable to him in order to help David. And we can each make sacrifices for our friends and those we love, and often we make those sacrifices without thinking. What kind of sacrifices do you make for your friends? Maybe it's giving them a lift, or popping in to feed the cat when they're on holiday, or cooking for them, or making them a cup of tea. Simple things like that. When we're in friendship and community with each other, we're willing to make those sacrifices. And they really don't have to be huge kinds of sacrifices, but the small, everyday sacrifices. Using our time and skills and knowledge or money to bless others and remind them that they are loved. An outward expression of an inward feeling. When we make sacrifices for our friends, they feel loved and known. Loyalty. 1 Samuel 19, verses 1 to 5 says, Saul told his son Jonathan and all the attendants to kill David. But Jonathan had taken a great liking to David and warned him, My father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. Be on your guard tomorrow morning, go into hiding and stay there. I will go out and stand with my father in the field where you are. I'll speak to him about you and will tell you what I find out. So Saul was jealous of David's success in battle, and he continued to make his life difficult. He even made some rather interesting demands of David when discussing the dowry for his daughter. You can explore that one yourself later. Saul went as far as to plot to kill David, but Jonathan would not allow it. Here we see Jonathan warning David about his father's plans, and a bit later we see Jonathan confront his father and tell him not to kill David. I don't know what kind of relationship that you may have had with your parents, but if Jonathan was anything like me, it would have taken a huge amount of courage for him to stand up to his father. Jonathan had such a deep-rooted love for David that he was willing to do anything for him. Jonathan was loyal to David. And when we're friends with people, we're loyal to them. We don't want to see any harm come to them, and we will defend them whenever needed and stand by them. Now, being a Gloucester girl originally, I come from a family of rugby fans. And a number of years ago, the Gloucester Rugby Stadium was being redeveloped. And in order to raise funds for this, supporters were encouraged to sponsor a brick. So we decided we would sponsor one in memory of my dad. And we also got one for my brother. And as part of the package, you'd sponsor the brick to go in the building. And you could also have a brick that you kept for yourself. So for the last 20 or so years, outside my front door, there has been a brick, or my mum's front door, there's been a brick in the ground that says, Gavin Carter, a loyal fan. Now, just to clarify, Gavin is my brother and is very much still alive. People have genuinely asked, what's under that brick? But the point is that Gavin wanted to show his commitment to Gloucester. He was willing to invest his time and money into supporting the team, both on and off the pitch, whether they were top of the league or bottom. He was there supporting them and cheering them on. And just like my brother is a loyal fan of Gloucester, Jonathan was a loyal fan of David, and he made a covenant promise to support him and stand up for him. Similarly, when we love our friends well, we make a commitment to them, to stand alongside them and have their backs. And I don't think any of us will ever have to stop our friends from being killed, but I'm sure that in loving each other, we make the same commitment that Jonathan does to David. It may not be on quite the same scale, but it's still important. Emotional intimacy. 1 Samuel 20 verse 41 says, "After the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. Then they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most." David and Jonathan are emotionally intimate. They share their emotions openly and vulnerably with each other. And this can be an uncomfortable verse for some people, especially if you're a stiff upper-lipped Brit who doesn't express any emotions. But the reality is that each and every one of us has emotions, and we shouldn't run from them. Romans 12 verse 15 says, "Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep." If we're to truly live out our Christian lives together, we should share our emotions openly with those that we love. And we see Jonathan and David rejoice and weep together throughout their story, and it's this emotional intimacy that brings them closer together. I think we can often come up with excuses for not sharing our feelings and struggles with others. They're too busy, we don't want to burden them, our emotions aren't as significant as theirs. But when we don't share our emotions, we deny others the honour of being there for us and supporting us. And I'm preaching to myself here as much as to you, but no one will ever be cross with you for reaching out for help and being vulnerable. And they certainly won't be cross with you for asking them to celebrate with you. A while ago, I'd been going through a bit of a tough season, and I'm not going to go into details, but what I can tell you is that being able to share my emotions vulnerably with friends really helped. Having people sit with me in the pain made it easier and deepened our friendships. As we sat in pain and allowed our emotions to flow, it drew us closer together. And it's these same friendships that allow for the greatest of celebrations. Those same friends were the first to pop the champagne when I got a new job. When we share an emotional intimacy, we allow others to share in our lives and love each other more deeply. David and Jonathan had a deep bond of friendship and were in a context that I'm not sure any of us will face in the present day. But hopefully their connection will inspire you to continue to make sacrifices, continue to be loyal, and continue to be emotionally intimate with those that you choose to call friends. So as we continue to strive to be better friends, we live out the life that Jesus has called us to. Our gospel reading today highlights this command: love each other. And I don't think that it's an accident that this is noted as the greatest commandment. We love because we are loved, and we want to share that love with others. In doing friendship well, we show love towards others. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge that for some people, friendships haven't always been easy. You may have experienced pain or hurt and loss at times. Friendships aren't always easy, and that's normal. But I also want us to celebrate today because we all have a mutual friend in Jesus. Jesus who made the ultimate sacrifice for us. Jesus who never leaves us. Jesus who feels all our emotions. And that same Jesus asks us to make sacrifices, to be loyal to him, and to share our emotions with him. Jesus loves us and wants to be in friendship with us. So I leave you with this from John 15. Love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command.